Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison, and I want to welcome you to this program for Humanity Rising as we convene around the Conference of Parties that is taking place in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. For 27 years now, the governments of the world have met on an annual basis at the behest of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change to discuss what governments around the world can do to address the most acute challenge ever to face the human race. We have been through many travails and historical episodes, but nothing compares to the challenge we face with the very climate that has sustained human existence for hundreds of thousands of years, and planetary life for millions of years is now being upset in a very short period of time by human activity. And yet after 27 years, our governments have essentially done nothing. So the ecological system out of which we come and in which we live is now being radically destabilized. So over the next 10 days, Humanity Rising is focusing attention on what we in the civil society can do. And as I mentioned yesterday, as we began our program, we will start each day with a live broadcast from Sharm el-Sheikh through a partnership with Facing Future TV. And then we'll hear from young people in different parts of the world. Today, we'll hear from youth leading the world in Sierra Leone. But we're going to start, just because the internet connections have been a little bit dicey, as they were yesterday and again today from both Sharm el-Sheikh and Sierra Leone. So we're not quite sure how things are going to work out. But I want to bring in Jim Bandel, who's with Facing Future TV there in Sharm el-Sheikh. And he's the professor at the University of Cumbria in the UK. And he is there with Rhea Salter, who's been also working with us, and she'll appear on subsequent days. But Jim, welcome. And just take a few minutes to both introduce yourself and anything you want to say about Facing Future TV, and then give us an update on what's happening there in Sharm el-Sheikh.
Thanks, Jim. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm currently inside the conference center. So you can see the branding here behind me. And we've just finished a session where we had Dr. Stella Nyambura from Kenya and G. Bastida from Mexico. The Raya and I were hosting, and they were talking about climate justice, loss and damage, and reparations from a perspective that you don't often hear that much about, either in the normal climate news, and certainly not really here. However, as you probably noticed, loss and damage and recognizing how much damage has been done already, and how the people suffering the most are the ones who caused it the least, or at least they live in societies that haven't caused it. It is a key topic here. I think it was always going to be at some point, and so finally now this year it is. And so what we were talking about on the panel is the level of suffering that's happening, and the way that events like this seem so far removed from that, and the way that we, as you mentioned in the intro, Jim, the years and years of 30 years of failure and blah blah blah, failure in terms of delivering on promises, failure in terms of having any impact at all noticeable on either emissions or atmospheric carbon concentrations, and what we're witnessing, which is exponentially increasing impacts from even just the current level of heating of about 1.2 to 1.3 degrees over 1890, pre-industrial temperatures. So we also talked about, well, why is there this failure? I think there's often a lot of, because we've even got people like Al Gore saying, you know, now we're failing and we've got a credibility problem. But no one seems to ask why, as if it's so the subtext is that things are failing because people didn't know enough, or there wasn't enough charismatic leadership, or whatever, or the political cycles are too short. Well, we were saying something different on the panel, which is the failure on this issue is just a symptom of a failure on myriad issues of social and environmental concern, which is a direct result of our economic system and the culture it produces, and then the culture that reproduces the economic system. So in my closing, I noted how this conference center, before we showed up, you can check it out for yourselves. If you go to Google Maps and type in Sharm el-Sheikh Conference Center, you'll find that this conference center, before we showed up, was the Lamborghini Conference Center, Sharm el-Sheikh. And I think that is it just highlights, we have this culture of ostentatious consumption, this consumer culture, which the elites that gather in these events, they're part of, and they don't know any different. And so what they're really talking about when they're talking about saving the world is they're talking about saving their world. They're not talking about reducing harm for others. And so I think this COP is a conference of prophets, and it was never going to do anything very much, and it never will. So why I'm here is to piggyback on the fact that a lot of people do come here, and that we can actually connect with each other and talk about another way forward, which for me is concerned people from the global north like me, having more relationships directly with people in the global south to help raise awareness across the global south of why they're beginning to suffer. So that basically, you know, proper climate literacy, how it's going to get worse, and what's at fault, which includes something of who's to blame. And then let them build from the base up their own political agendas, stories, frameworks, narratives, movements, and basically force some level of readjustment in the global economy, in the distribution of resources worldwide, rather than what happens at these events now, which is we just have people showing up saying, isn't it terrible? Let's have a bit more charity from the north, and the rich world doesn't do anything about it. It might promise to, and then not deliver. So I decided to use a little prop. You won't be able to see this the right way around, I guess, because I'm on selfie here. So this is the only Lambo I want to own. It's a little toy one I bought. Just stop what? I thought I'd leave it as just stop what? More than oil.
Can I say that
this whole culture.
Jem's presentation was fantastic. I loved the intervention. It was timely, it was powerful, and it was also funny.
Yeah, this is Rhea, everyone. I introduced you a few minutes ago, Rhea. Nice of you to be able to join us.
My connection, I don't mean to, Jem, please, my connection has been a little iffy, but I wanted to say hello. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jem. And yes, we're just leaving our first day at the COP.
Maybe I could just give everyone who's shown up a bit of a glimpse of
we're losing you, Jim. There we go.
Come back, I'm just showing you a nice moon above COP. So we didn't need aircon, and everywhere's blasting aircon. There's such dissonance between what we need to see in the world and the way these kinds of events are organized. And I remember talking about that 20 odd years ago. And there's no change, and talking about it won't change anything. That's what I've been talking about in the sessions. We've got to start building coalitions for struggling against power rather than just asking power to hear us and be nice to us.
Jim, let me ask you just a quick question also to you, Rhea. I read on the news that the app that the Egyptian government was suggesting everybody tune into for schedule required access to photos, emails, social media, and was clearly being used as a surveillance instrument. What do you know about that? Is that in fact the case? Is that misinformation? What's your understanding?
I can answer that. I read about it.
Yeah.
So I read an article in The Guardian about that, and that it was at the Electronic Frontiers Foundation, got a technical team to look at it, and the official app that you can download here definitely, according to them, requires all manner of information, access to all your emails and so forth. So I was very pleased they did that and wrote about it, so I just didn't download the app.
Good.
So it's not such a drama if you know it and get the information out. But it's an unfortunate precedent if the UN, which has a whole bunch of guidelines and agreements. I mean, there's the International Telecommunication Union as part of the UN. There's the Human Rights Council. They all have guidance on privacy and data and surveillance and such like. And so that the fact that the UN would be encouraging this level of surveillance through this app is I would say a failure of vision, a failure of diligence within the UNFCCC. They shouldn't be. It's quite easy to say, hey guys, we can't have you gathering data on tens of thousands of people who work on climate from around the world. Is it a sign of things to come? Yes, unless we stop it. Is it a sign of some grand plan? I think no. We would just be speculating on that for entertainment's sake. But I don't think that helps us build the argument against it.
Good. Well, thank you, Jim. Rhea, any closing words you'd like to make before we let you go?
Just thank you for everybody who's listening. It's really important that we focus on the issues, that we pay attention to COP, that we make as powerful a showing of truth to power that we can. And it's important. These are elitist exclusive events. So it's extremely important to be beaming back and sharing this information with everyone. So I want to thank you and everyone who's listening. Thank them for their engagement, and onwards.
Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow.
Have a good one.
Thank you, Rhea. Thank you so much, Jim. That's our first report from Sharm el-Sheikh.
Thank you.
As Jim said, which we've said in our announcement about the COP there, the governments are engaging, I would say, with militant intention in blah, blah, blah. And that is actually, it's a crime if you think about it at the deepest level. And they are now there speaking truth to power. They are dealing with surveillance. When I talked with Bill McKibben last week, who will be appearing next week, he was saying this is the first time that the COP has been convened in an explicitly dictatorship state. So those are some of the issues that Jim, Rhea, and thousands of climate activists are dealing with. So we'll hear more from them tomorrow and each day. And as the COP unfolds, we'll be getting news live from Facing Future TV. So thank you so much for that. I want to turn now to our young people, because if the governments aren't going to do the job, we, the people, have to do the job. And we've also partnered with Oz Green in Australia, and partnered with Youth Leading the World, which has been developed in collaboration with Oz Green. And each day, as Sue Lennox indicated yesterday, who's the founder of Oz Green, we're going to be going to a different country, listening to different young people who are passionate about climate. And so today we're going to go to Sierra Leone. And I want to introduce Alpha Cargbo, who's there in Youth Leading Sierra Leone, who's got a number of colleagues. We've also got some internet challenges, so everyone just bear with us. And we'll take a few minutes, as we just did with Rhea and Jim, and then we'll bring on Linda Tucker of the White Lion Protection Trust. And we'll also be hearing from Tamsin Woolley Barker, who's co-moderating with me for the COP program. But Alpha from Sierra Leone, you're welcome. Take a few minutes to tell us what you folks are doing on climate action in your country.
Thank you very much, Jim, for that wonderful introduction. I am here. I am from Sierra Leone, representing Youth Leading the World Sierra Leone. We are here with my colleague, Aisha Kuyate. Aisha, can you introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm Aisha Kuyate. I'm a Youth Leading the World facilitator from Sierra Leone.
Thank you, Aisha. We are here to talk about what we are doing, our actions, our visions, and our concerns. Well, Youth Leading the World Sierra Leone is dedicated to unite youth in Sierra Leone to tackle the major challenges of deforestation, climate change, and poverty. Our top concerns we look at, one of it is climate crisis and flooding. Frequency of storm has doubled in coastal Africa in 30 years. Within much of this increase links to the impacts of deforestation, removal of vegetations, increased rainfall, run water, and risks to mudslide. More frequent and more severe storms and flooding. The other concern is water in Sierra Leone, the situation of water. Only 2% of the population of Sierra Leone has access to clean, readily and available drinking water. Many rural areas, women work up to 6 kilometers every day to access 40-kilometer water. The energy in Sierra Leone, only 26% of Sierra Leone population has access to electricity, most in urban areas, one of the lowest rates of electricity access in the world.
Like he dropped off. Aisha, can you take over?
Sure.
Aisha,
Disappeared.
Just,
Yeah.
yeah, we lost
let me
Alpha.
take over.
There he
I think he stopped at energy in Sierra Leone, right? Okay, he's back.
Hello.
Alpha's back. So we lost you for a moment there, Alpha.
Hello.
Carry on.
Yes. Food security in Sierra Leone. Only 27% of people have food security in Sierra Leone. Food inflation in Sierra Leone increases 31.60% in August 2022. It also happened that there is a violent protest and riots breakout triggered by the national cost of living crisis in Sierra Leone. Our actions, what we've done as an organization is much, but before reaching to our action, I may want Aisha, my colleague, to also read out our concerns as well before going to our actions. Aisha.
Yes, the concern I'm going to talk about is girls' education and women empowerment in Sierra Leone. Girls' education in Sierra Leone, only 46% of girls aged 15 to 24 years are literate, and 40% of school-aged girls leave school due to poverty. And a good number of girls don't even get the opportunity to go to school due to early marriage or gender-based inequality, and early pregnancies and so on. And because of this, it leads women to become like, to not have any form of empowering themselves. So this increased the rate of poverty in Sierra Leone. And I'm also going to read out our vision, how we want to see women in our country. Women and girls all over the world are valued. We want to see women and girls all over the world are valued. We want to see access to quality education for girls all over the world. We also want to see women actively leading change, and we want to see young people everywhere have access to quality education that equips them to lead change.
As an organization,
I think that
thank you, Aisha. I want to continue with our action. The organization was established in 2020, and we have done lots of activities to see how we can harvest climate change or reduce climate change in our locality. First of all, we've done youth engagement, youth leadership. We have conducted some youth congresses and summits wherein we engage youth. We tell them about climate change. We teach them to teach others as well, so that they will know the true cause of climate change. We have done something on food. We create food gardens. We do food gardens in school, in villages, and we engage youth in the regenerative agriculture and reforestation projects. We as well have done something in food security. Few months back, Sierra Leone went into riots because of the rampage of increase in prices of food commodity. So we asked for some funds to people, and after raise that funds, we provide emergency food aid to about 60 families. We do food distribution. And we have also looked at tree planting as well, which was one of our main aims as an organization. We planted trees in various areas that are very much risk or prone to flooding. These are the areas we targeted to plant trees in order to have a rescue on climate change. We allow young people to join us as well in helping us organize our programs, or in helping us advocate our programs to other youths. So we do what we call Global Online Youth Summits every year, that we involve youth from any country to come together to share ideas, to tackle the issues or our concerns. Aisha will also talk about one of our actions that we have done about the women. Go ahead, Aisha. Aisha, go ahead and tell us about one of the actions we've done for the girls.
You're on mute, Aisha. You have to take yourself off mute. She might not be able to hear us.
Aisha, on mute.
Hello, sorry.
Now she hears this.
There we go. There we
Hello.
go.
Carry on.
Aisha, Alpha was just asking.
Hello?
Yes,
Hello.
Aisha, can you just tell us our action we've done towards the girls?
Hello, Alpha. I didn't get what you said.
I think there is a network problem with you, Aisha.
Yeah, can you hear
Aisha?
Aisha?
Oh,
If you can hear us, Aisha, it's a
yeah,
question
I have
about what
a
you're doing with the girls.
problem with the network, but I think
All right.
I think Alpha, we need to just
can you
proceed.
hear me now?
Yes, Aisha.
Yes.
Hello?
Hello. Yeah,
Oh, okay. Okay, about that. We are hello?
Go ahead, Aisha.
We arranged school clubs for girls. Yeah. We arranged eco school clubs for girls where we bring in girls and try to educate them on climate change, and we try to work together and sensitize them about climate change and like talk about ideas, brainstorm on solutions, and come up with solutions on how to tackle this climate change. And we are planning on creating more school clubs in this year to bring in more girls. And hello?
All right. Thank you, Aisha. Youth Leading the World Sierra Leone thought it fit that to tackle climate change crisis in the world needs the involvement of the youth, because we have a sustainable change, a forever change. So therefore, we always involve youth in this particular change, and we'll make sure our activities are prioritized by the youth. And we normally do girls club, wherein we set up girls, we teach them about climate change, and we involve them into our activities as well as an organization. The contact person to the organization is Alpha Mohamed Kadu, that is me, and I will put out my email address to the chat. We have several pending activities we want to do in order to rescue the situation of climate change. Our country has some serious problem in terms of this climate change, because when there is a raining season, we normally have a lot of flooding happening in the capital city. We have landslide happening regularly. They destroy lives and properties are destroyed and so on. And the cost of living has duly increased in Sierra Leone. So we thought it as an organization that we need to embark on regenerative agriculture, so that we can see how we can settle the issue of food in our country. As we have analyzed to you the percentage of electricity that we have in our country, percentage of people who have access to food and so on, we do a lot of activities to see that we can rescue those cases. But we cannot have a total solution to these particular concerns if we don't have support. So Youth Leading the World, presently, we are on youth engagements. We are doing youth engagements to all the parts within the country, to different towns, wherein we gather youths. We have them for 2 days. We tell them about climate change. We give them examples of disasters that are happening within the country. We tell them the risks, and we tell them what are the possible solutions to do that can reduce the climate change. And this youth engagement we are doing, we have started it in the capital, which is Freetown, Sierra Leone, and we want it to be continued across the country. And for doing that, we need the support of people in order for us to carry on with our activities. I will send in the chat our bank details for anyone who wants to donate to Youth Leading the World. so that these activities will be accelerated. Please just give me a few minutes.
Well, thank you for this, Alpha and Aisha. Alpha is going to put the bank details of how you can be supportive of their efforts there with climate change and with the young women and so forth. It's a very, very strong program. We've had them on Humanity Rising before, and we're able to generate some significant financial support. So this is important. I think we may want to move on here as soon as Alpha looks like you froze. Are you able to connect with the chat?
Yes, I am just trying to forward something on the chat so that we can have direct contact with whosoever wants to donate to Youth Leading the World or wants to help accelerate the work of Youth Leading the World.
Okay, well, good. Well, thank you
in
both.
This country.
We're going to continue on with our program, but the work that's being done by Youth Leading the World in Sierra Leone is obviously very important in a country that is being ravaged by climate change. And that's what's not being discussed in Sharm el-Sheikh, unfortunately, and one of the reasons why Humanity Rising wanted to identify youth groups in various parts of the world that are really on the front lines. So Aisha, Alpha, thank you so much. I'd like to shift our program now to our main speaker, Linda Tucker, who is joining us from South Africa, from Timbavati Nature Preserve there, where she's been working on the white lions. But I also want to note that Dr. Tamsin Woolley Barker is with us. She's been our keynote speaker yesterday, setting the tone for our overall program. And I thought, since she knows Linda quite well, it'd be better for Tamsin to introduce Linda. But I want to make sure, first of all, Georg, has Linda joined us?
No, I can't see her in the panel list. I will write emails. She will test.
Yeah, I was in touch with her assistant just before going live, and they're all set to go. We may have some internet issues with South Africa as well, everyone.
Her work is so inspiring. I don't know if everybody knows her, but she's the CEO and founder of the Global White Lion Protection Trust. And this work is so inspiring. I mean, for me, coming from a conservation background, and she just brings it all together, I think, with the lions and the land and the people. And I love what she's doing, bringing the ancient indigenous wisdom into this work. And I also wanted to say that the kids, Alpha and Aisha, that was so inspiring. And Aisha, I love that you're bringing forth the girls' empowerment and women's education. You know, it's such important work, as we saw from the drawdown figures. Thank you.
Yeah, Linda has been on Humanity Rising a number of times and was particularly excited to come on this time to report on some work that she's been doing with a paleontologist, Professor Bob Brain, who has developed research indicating that our forebears millions of years ago, Australopithecus, there's evidence apparently of our forebears actually cohabitating with saber-toothed tigers right around the time that human beings develop fire for cooking.
Okay.
And so she was meeting with the professor over the last week and was going to give us a report on that. So I'm sorry she isn't able to connect from South Africa.
Yeah,
So let us know. And in the meantime, Tamsin and I will just have our own conversation. Tamsin, this is probably an area of paleontology that you know quite a bit about.
yeah, I know. I know Bob Brain's research as well. So
why don't you brief us, and then when Linda comes on, she can add to what you're saying.
well,
there's Linda.
She is.
There she is.
Hey.
Hi, Linda.
Hi, Jim. Hello, everybody. Sorry, I had a bit of trouble linking on. But you think that's fantastic. Thank you.
Well, Zoom happens, and actually, Tamsin already introduced you, and we talked a little bit about your work with Bob Brain. But this is Linda Tucker, everyone, of the White Lion Protection Trust. You know her through her books and through the extraordinary work that she's been doing protecting one of the most precious species we know of, the white lions. And the white lions are particularly important for the human race and have been integral to human development, as Linda has been sharing over the several years that she's been working on this program. So Linda, we'll just turn the program over to you. And then when you finish your presentation, Tamsin and I will dialogue with you for the balance of the time. Oh, now we see two Lindas.
Oh, no.
Wow, that's never happened.
Well,
They're
the
not
real
even in sync.
We need to in these times, don't we?
Yeah, we need two of you. So carry on. We can see you and hear you.
Is that so? Should I come on one more time?
No, you're good.
I got rid of the second one. Now we have the one that's
Thank
moving.
you.
I got rid of the right one.
Okay, well, I've come back from Sharm el-Sheikh. What I decided to do was to spend the week in the lead up to COP27 with a group of indigenous elders from around the world of different cultures, environmental lawyers as well, and climate activists. So a group of about 50 of us across all cultures, and our purpose was to communicate with Earth, to prepare Earth for humanity's efforts to change this paradigm. It's become increasingly clear to me that that bridge, that ancient shamanic bridge of making contact with Earth, asking her permission, given that we understand Mother Earth is Gaia and sentient at this time, is the most important thing we could do to prepare collective consciousness for the proceedings that have followed since then. So this group then went up Mount Sinai and to hold unified prayer ceremonies. And it was really magnificent. It's important to remember this heightened consciousness when we look at the dire statistics that can easily gut all of us and incapacitate us with a sense that we've already lost the battle, which is not the case when one works at a deep shamanic indigenous level at all. So what I was hoping to do in my time today was to take us back into two epochs before our own, so that I can take us forward to look at the events taking place right now and the importance of them from an indigenous point of view. I'm talking about a global indigenous point of view, which is where I spend most of my time working and bridging with science and then going back into indigenous knowledge systems. And I believe if I succeed in sharing those two epochs with you, we'll be clearer about what is facing us right now. Both of the epochs involve climate crises, and both involve the big cats. And I believe that is critical to our evolutionary turning point at this time. So I'm not sure how long I have, Jim, but if I have 20 minutes to half an hour, what I'd love to do is, before I take you to those epochs, I'd like to share, and this is highly relevant, what has been achieved in our project with the white lions returned to their endemic territories, an ancient sacred site where they've restored and regenerated the ecosystem. And I think it's just a 3-minute video that I'd share with you, but it will open the way to a positive discussion that we can pick up later. So I'm going to share screen, and you'll hear Africa calling in a moment. Here we go.
Like the vital organs of the body, powerful biodiversity hotspots on Earth hold the source codes for the revitalization of our entire planet and the flourishing of life itself. Life began in Africa, and speciation is associated with the East African Rift Valley at the epicenter of Earth's land masses, also referred to by evolutionary scientists as the birth canal of the human species. The white lions were born on the Nilotic meridian along the East African Rift tectonic plate, and significantly in alignment with the most important architectural sacred sites on the African continent: Giza, Great Zimbabwe, Barberton. This means that humankind's greatest lion monument, the Great Sphinx and pyramids of Giza in the north, align exactly with the birthplace of the white lions in the south. The white lions originate in this one location only on Earth, Timbavati, meaning place where the star lions came down in the old Shangaan language, and their heartland, Tsao, meaning star lion. But while the African wisdom keepers have long revered the white lions as holy animals and bringers of peace and prosperity, their critically important role in the ecosystem is less well understood. Their cultural role in restoring hope to humankind is equaled by their ecological role in restoring health to their ecosystem. Today, we are faced with a pervading sense of the devastation and desecration of Mother Earth. As immortalized in Disney's Lion King story, when the true king is removed from his kingdom, a wasteland ensues. But there is a way to come back into right relationship with our planet. When the apex animal is restored in its natural kingdom, the flourishing of all species in the ecosystem is assured. The white lions may be living legends, mythic in their majesty and iconic in their radiant solar power, yet their ability to restore health and healing to their natural ecosystem is fundamental ecology at its best. Importantly, their place of origin is in the epicenter of South Africa's Kruger to Canyons biosphere, a UNESCO-declared biosphere region and one of the last viable lion ranges on the planet. The white lion's birthplace was declared an ancient sacred site by African kings hundreds of years before the Kruger National Park was claimed in 1926, and the more recent United Nations accreditation at the turn of this millennium. But tragically, the white lions have been forcibly removed from their endemic wilderness territories for a documented period of over 6 decades into zoos and circuses around the globe and into death camps in South Africa's notorious cuddle to kill industry. To ensure the critical survival of the white lions while protecting the watershed in their area of origin, the Global White Lion Protection Trust has been purchasing large tracts of land since 2004, the heart of the white lion's ancestral territories. Significantly, the White Lion Heartlands spans the arterial river, which serves the greater region, the only perennial waters in an area of some 100,000 hectares. Once a severely denuded habitat of radical biodiversity loss, the White Lion Heartlands has enjoyed dramatic regeneration under the paw print of the apex predator. This recent Google Earth map records the contrast between Tsao, the White Lion Heartlands today, and the desertification of neighboring lands directly bordering, where legalized commercial trophy hunting of lions has been taking place for decades. Just as wolves restored waterways in Yellowstone Park, so ecologists now recognize the apex predator's role in restoring balance throughout the trophic levels of the food chain in an ecosystem. As inspirational symbols of true service-based leadership, the white lions in our protected area restore health to their ecosystem and hope to human systems. Behind me is land that was once seriously degraded in the heart of the White Lion Heartlands. The Global White Lion Protection Trust has been purchasing large tracts of land in the white lion's endemic homelands and returning the lions to the wild in a scientific reintroduction program, because we know when the white lions flourish, all life flourishes. Today, all conservation issues are global issues. If Brazil loses its rainforests, Earth has lost her lungs. If South Africa loses its white lions, Earth has lost her heart. We can all feel it, the pulsing heart of the animal kingdom on Earth, the white lion's sacred natural site, revitalizing all the vital organs of our living planet.
So I wanted to begin with that because we need to remember in the midst of this crisis that there are solutions, and the solutions are clearly our realignment with nature, restoring right relationship. And so what I would like to do now is to consider why white lions have been viewed as climate indicator species, and to take us back into two former epochs so that we can assess our options and where we are today in order to go forward. And I hope that this opens up a rich discussion. But I'd like to share my screen again because some of the images are really worth guiding us through. And you've gathered that I've just, in coming back from Sharm el-Sheikh, my first port of call was to return to this ancient Paleolithic site where a scientist, Professor Bob Brain, has spent his life uncovering fossil records that were really quite extraordinary. So I met up with him again yesterday, and he is literally 91 years old, still very beady-eyed and very, very determined to understand the importance of his findings. And so let me just share what I'm going to be taking you through. Share screen. Right, there we go. I hope you can see that. So I'm resting our eyes right into the eyes of the white lions, who I believe are the custodians of this moment in history, having returned from this former epoch that I'm going to share with you. If you look deep into the eyes of the white lion, this is a call to remembrance, a call to accountability. And this is the lioness who I managed to return to the wild. I am reflecting on us, on this moment, everyone, right now, today, before I take us back in time. Today is a lunar eclipse. And this lioness was born through a lunar eclipse. So was her next generation. So was the next generation, and to the fourth generation. So I'm just honoring that lineage now. The lions who I depict here through this solar eclipse that is happening today, those three that are smiling at you, their birthday on the solar eclipse on the 8th of November was 19 years ago. So they are 19 years today. And I would just like to honor that because it is not only a birthday, but it's a 19th year lunar eclipse event. We'll reflect for a moment later why such an event is significant. But I just wanted to give you a photograph of Bob Brain there at the site of Sterkfontein. And here's what his lifetime's discovery uncovered, layer upon layer upon layer. What he discovered in this cradle of humankind was that at a former ice age, Australopithecus africanus, what we might call the ape man and the ape woman, our former ancestor, was cohabiting in these caves together with the great cats of that time, Dinopholis. And what happened in these caves is really quite extraordinary, because what he then discovered is that the inhabitants knew the use of fire. And they were, so then it goes into hypothesis, and the scientific hypothesis is very different from the shamanic hypothesis with which I work. But essentially, if they were using fire, it meant the spark had been ignited there. And you look at what does it mean to guard the flame? What does it mean to be a fire bearer? And the fact that the cats were with them at this time was very fascinating to him, but was equally fascinating to me for the reason that it links with predation. So in that former ice age, these saber-toothed cats were predating, and our ancestors were entirely, they now understand, fruit and root and shoots eating. So in other words, they would have been part of the food chain. But once fire was discovered, it meant that our ancestors were in a dominant position potentially. And so the scientific hypothesis that he came up with was hunter or hunted. At that time, we learned predation from the great cats. We learned how to hunt. But it is linked with fire. And so I'd like to really look at the mythological importance of fire and the physiological importance of fire. Mythologically, fire has to do with guarding the flame of continuity, guarding the flame of life. And that flame comes from source. So you'll see in any ceremony to do with spirit, to do with source, a candle is lit, honoring continuity. And that is, in fact, the role of the apex predator. We'll come to that in a moment. What I'm saying is, in those caves, together with the lions of that time, we learned what predation is about, simultaneously as learning how to use fire. And that is the theme that we need to carry all the way through to this moment in time, how humanity has worked with fire, fossil fuels, firearms, atomic bombs. The question of fire is critical as we consider this moment in history and how we are going to go forward. What I'm showing you here is a Bushman painting that depicts the evolution of our species, which was effectively an evolutionary jump at that climate crisis from Australopithecus into Homo erectus, which is our direct ancestor. And symbolically, standing upright, our purpose was to bring the heavenly plan down to earth as a conduit. Have we remembered that? So that is the depiction of the upright human, which is our kind, humankind. And that is the apex animal in the ecosystem, the capstone animal. Now I'm going to take you to a second epoch in our history and speak into this epoch and its relevance for our moment now. We're looking at ancient Egypt, as you see, the Sphinx, the pyramids. Now, the Sphinx links directly to the lion and the role of the lion in this epoch. There's a lot of contestation about the dates of the Sphinx and the pyramids, but I go along with the archaeoastronomers led by John Anthony West and the stratigraphers who measured the Sphinx to be at a former ice age. And this is what the Sphinx would have been looking at that former ice age, the constellation of Leo. If that is the case, that is literally 12,000 years ago, which brings us to the Leo Aquarius age that we are moving into now. Some of you might know that the Sphinx is an equinoctial marker, so it marks time, and it marks this huge calendar of time known as the precession of the equinoxes, in which Leo Aquarius is the great turning point of those times and our times. We are looking at a moment in time where everything hangs in the balance. But what is important from that epoch, as you'll see in these pictures, is that the understanding at that time was that Earth was heaven's mirror. In other words, Earth was a heavenly realm gifted by the great cosmic beings. And here we see the figure at that time of the sacred masculine known as Osiris. Now, very briefly, what happened to Osiris is that he faced the forces of demolition in the form of Set, who carved him up into many pieces. Now, this is where it's relevant for our time. He had to be remembered. He was literally dismembered, and he had to be remembered in the form of Horus, the sacred masculine. Our role at this time is to remember the sacredness, the cosmic importance of Earth as a heavenly realm. And what I'm depicting there is the Nile, the Milky Way, and the subterranean river. In other words, the celestial river, terrestrial river, subterranean river. The reason I'm depicting that is that, as you saw from that brief video, there is a specific alignment of great significance that links with regeneration on our planet, and therefore climate, and therefore addressing the biodiversity crisis This meridian line is understood by the ancient Egyptians to be the birth canal of speciation. And it was known as the place of first time where species occurred, the source codes of species occurred. Now, the goddess of first time was in the leonine form of Sekhmet. She is known as the goddess of first time and end times. So the fact that she's been resurrected in our times, again, is highly significant of the consciousness birthing, the leonine consciousness birthing in our times of climactic crisis. There's another depiction of her, but in the form of the white lioness, whose birthday it is today. Again, the Sphinx was based on a lion, but more than that, it was based on a human lion. In other words, the shamanic consciousness that is able to move beyond humanity into the natural form and back again, so that we are not separate from nature. And you see the depiction of that time of the lion understood to be the star lion, bringing the stellar plan down to earth. The tail of that lion is understood to be the earth star, anchoring the heavenly plan on earth. I think that's from the ceiling of Dendera, I believe. So we are looking at this specific meridian line that is pretty much where Sharm el-Sheikh, where this gathering is taking place, certainly in the consciousness of Giza. And so where I am right now is Timbavati, having returned from those ancient caves. And Timbavati, where the star lines have been born, is in exact alignment with Giza. Why is this so significant? It has, as I mentioned, to do with the regeneration of our planet, but it also has to do with the consciousness that is birthing at our time. And so those two epochs that I'm looking at, of course, there was a thread running through our evolutionary development. And you can see in Greek and Roman times that these two lion consciousness or lion leadership models prevailed. This is Hercules, where the human believes that in order to be lion-like, you need to kill the lion. So that is the dominion-based model that, you know, has carried through in time. And yet in this myth, again, I'm referring to this myth specifically, just as I mentioned with Osiris and Horus, there is the fallen human, but then there is the possibility for the human to redeem himself. So in the case of Hercules, he went through these, you'll remember the whole issue about Hercules is that he was so egotistical, that he was so unbalanced, he had bouts of madness to the extent that he killed his loved ones, his wife and his children. As a consequence of that, he had these labors of Hercules to restore him, which ultimately restored him to his rightful place. Only once he realized on the 12th labor that he had to go into priestly relationship with the planet, with sacred relationship in the rebalancing. So I'm referring to him as a lineage that has occurred through time and typifies the arrogance and the dominion-based trophy hunting extraction of our planet that we're facing in our decisions today. But there was also this thread of consciousness that goes all the way back into those caves in Sterkfontein, which was cohabiting with the great cats and learning from the great cats. And this is the story of Androcles, dating back to biblical times, believed to be a true story, who, instead of running away from a lion in a cave, was brave-hearted enough to enter the cave. The lion had a thorn in its paw. Androcles removed the thorn and befriended the lion, who showed him the art of predation. And they cohabited for a great period of time. You'll probably know the end of the story. When they were found by the Romans, Androcles was thrown into the Colosseum. However, because of his friendship with the lion, he was about to be devoured by a lion, and it turned out to be his own lion who had been caged and was released. And the two of them then walked the streets of Rome and were understood to have this sacred relationship. So I'm bringing us back to the model of predation. And my understanding from the lions now, who I have returned to the wild, and I've seen how they predate, and they've shown me what predation is. First of all, it's interesting that the name predate is really relevant, because it takes us back to a time prehistoric time, before our egotistical or our understanding of time as sequential. It takes us back to a time when we knew that we were one with nature. And that is what the predator taught our kind. It's completely different from consumerism. What is the difference? Predation, as you saw from the video, is a restoring of balance through all the trophic levels of the food chain. And ecologists now understand this to regenerate environmentally degraded areas or ecosystems that are on the point of collapse. The key is to restore the apex animal, and that restores balance in all species. The essential gift of predation is understanding that all of nature gives of itself, all the way up the food chain, and then the lion itself, who in its very constitution, that word constitution, in its governance, it has every single representation of species in its physiological constitution. Its role is to ensure the continuity of life. And that takes us back to guarding the flame. Symbolically and in reality, the lion ensures continuity of all speciation in its ecosystem. That is its role as the predator. Now we, as these mighty hunters and these mighty exploiters of our planet, like to see lions as killing machines, couldn't be further from the truth. In a naturally functioning ecosystem, as you saw from that brief video, how they've restored everything right down to the seed base. The lion in predation is serving, and indigenous knowledge goes so far as to say that the prey gifts itself to the lion because it knows it will be part of the lion, and it knows that its species will be rebalanced by the lion. So if we, in our considerations about climate and climate crisis, if we look at this whole model that has to change, this model based on consumerism rather than predation, which is serving the greater good of the whole, which is giving back to creation because we know we are part of the whole system. If we can make that consciousness shift, we have the key to what is required of our decisions at this time. And the indigenous elders whom I work with understand this across all cultures. Essentially, you see in this illustration, we've got to move from that ego consciousness that separates us from creation to eco consciousness that puts us in the center and as part of everything, recognizing that we are here to serve nature in our governance role, if we have a governance role in the future. Now, I'm taking us back to that meridian for a specific reason now. The white lions who have returned in our time are understood to be climate indicator species because the systems are on the point of potential collapse. But they also understood to be bringers of enlightenment and bringers of peace on earth. So I've shown you that image of the lion of St. Mark's, a winged lion, but you'll see it has packs under its paw, indicating peace. In ancient Venice, if that book of peace was closed, it meant Venice was going to war. But if the book is open under the paw of the winged lion, it means that peace on earth prevails. Now, part of our decision-making at this time has to be around peace. And in order to create peace, we need to understand we cannot achieve peace on earth until we have made our peace with nature. So it's rather chilling for us to see that on the same meridian line that links Giza to Timbavati, where the white lions hold this peace plan for nature and model it for humanity, is Kiev is exactly on that meridian. So while humanity plays out our war games, it's important to know that nature is restoring herself. And it's from that position that we should make the decisions about how we engage. Any decision at a collective level, our engagement with the conference of parties at this time, and in our own lives. We have the battle lines drawn, and there you see the lions standing against humanity's warfare, these ancient presences that remind us that there is a higher order plan happening, whether we know it or not. And the fact that COP takes place with this eclipse, I'd like to just close on that and bring us back to the fact that this moment now is an eclipse. It's also the moment when the white lions are birthed through these eclipses, signifying for humanity that there's a higher plan at work, a peace plan that is available to us if we raise our consciousness. Just as in that former ice age, there was an evolutionary leap in humanity, I believe that at this astrological turning point of the Leo Aquarius age that we're going into, there is an invitation by the cosmos, by Mother Nature herself, this great sentient being who is part of the divine plan of the cosmos. There's an invitation for us to raise our consciousness into, if you like, the winged, the angelic aspect of the human. So in the midst of the collapse of systems is this crucible that we are going through. And COVID was an initiation, a global initiation of that kind that reminded us of the key issues of our time and the ability to really face up to them, knowing that there is a higher plan at work. Why are eclipses important? Because they signify alignment with the cosmic plan. The moon, the sun, and Sirius in alignment. At an eclipse, you may know that the moon is 400 times smaller than the sun, yet it is 400 times closer to the earth. And that exact correspondence, like clockwork, means that one can experience an eclipse from earth. It's indicative of this incredible cosmic clock that is taking place in our times, whether we know it or not. And the fact that enlightenment bearing animals come through a moment of darkness bearing light is a reminder that we live in prophetic times. There's the picture of the revelations from the Christian tradition. You'll see a white lion winged, you'll see the white buffalo, you'll see the white eagle, and there you see potentially humanity as the angelic version, the divine version of ourselves. I know it seems a leap. Well, that's what we're talking about here, an evolutionary leap in prophetic times. So I'm actually going to close with that, and bring us to our present times with an invitation for all of us listening in, is that why is all of this history relevant to us now? Just close that. This ancient contract that we made in the caves of Sterkfontein in a former ice age, this place that is known as the cradle of humankind, where we were given the gift of fire. What are we going to do with it now? How are we going to restore our contract with Earth? How are we going to address fossil fuels? How are we going to address the use of fire to create war? Whereas originally, the gift of fire was to understand what true predation is about. The lion guards the night. It's a nocturnal predator. It carries the flame through the night and governs. And as the sun dawns, it goes to sleep, and it is meant to hand on that flame to humanity. It hands on the flame, but what do we do with that flame? So my invitation to everyone here is, at any given moment, and particularly when we purchase, when we consume, to ask the question, are we going to be consuming, or are we going to be restoring that gift that was shown us by the predators at that evolutionary moment in our history where we were shown what predation is, how to serve all of creation, how to restore the balance and the continuum of all life, passing the flame onto future generations. I'd like to open up to questions. I see there's a lot of interesting questions in the chat.
Thank you so much, Linda. We've been monitoring the chat, and I think we'll start in the time that we have. We have about 10, 15 minutes left with Tamsin just summarizing things and engaging with some of the issues that you've been raising.
Thank you.
Tamsin?
Linda, that was amazing. How inspiring. And I just thank you for your work. It's really beautiful. And I as an evolutionary biologist, I worked in the Rift Valley. So I love that idea of the birthplace of mankind. We know that, but like species are actually coming from there. And that's the work I did, was on speciation in the Rift Valley. So that just totally resonates. Yeah. And then of course, Bob Brain's work is just so amazing, going back to that. But what stood out for me was the way that you're really coming to the leverage points where we don't have to create this ourselves. It can seem so overwhelming, but all we have to do is allow the nature to come through, right? It's already there trying to be. So it's really the humility to hear it. So what I really loved is that not only are you bringing together the biology and like the biomimicry, right? Of like even bringing back this image of humans learning from the cats. And, so this learning from nature and the humility there. And so if we can just do that, it opens up all of this, amazingness. but then also how you're bringing in the indigenous wisdom and the original wisdom. Because, as scientists, it's so easy for us to just go, well, this is true, that's true, whatever. But all of this is deep human wisdom that is part of our collective consciousness and our imagination since the beginning of time. And so the humility to allow that to come in and to remember it, I think those two leverage points, like the humility to learn and observe, and the humility to listen and to activate. And it's just so beautiful how you brought that together, and that we don't have to do the work. We can just do those high leverage point things, and the cats have this cascading trophic effect, and we can have that too. So just thank you so much.
That's fascinating, isn't it? That, our work intersects in that way. And at one level, we don't need to do the work. At the other level, we need to realize that we are being invited back into a system that would welcome us if we are, truly stewards in the way that we were invited to be. So biomimicry, learning the laws of nature in remembering our nature, our true nature, is the key to the way forward. And I think, one of those leverage points as well is that the UN has used this term sustainable use or sustainable development going back to Stockholm 50 years ago. And, it's still the narrative that people are using. Well, that's not predation. Predation is a gifting system, a circular economy, and so we need to find new languaging for our endpoint, because our endpoint can't be sustainable use, which is basically sustainable abuse of our planet. It has to, in allowing nature to do her work, as you say, we need to find a new endpoint, which is harmonious coexistence with our planet. And if we visualize that, then biomimicry and all the other tools that are available for us will mean that we can get there. But we need to change our language, because we locked into a model, even the sustainability, the 17 sustainability goals are still looking at how much can we extract before our system collapses, how much can we continue this abusive relationship. Whereas if we see ourselves as the true capstone animal, which serves the rebalancing of all of nature, the question is, what can we give? What can we give back?
I think that's so true. And it's just, these things are at work, and it's remembering that we are part of it. We're not outside of it. This human nature connection, we are nature. And so I think, like you said, back in the right relationship of how do these things come together to maintain harmony and balance? And can we remember how to do it? So it's just
indeed. And at that level, we can take heart. We can, feel courage rising, and remembering that there is a greater plan than we can ever imagine. The fact that there is an eclipse at the start of, COP27 is an accountability moment where, the cosmic plan is lining up and saying, get back into alignment, essentially, or alignment.
Yeah, I love that. Bringing back the old stories. I think that's really important, because those are like, there's a reason they've survived, because they speak to us and the universal human condition. So I think, pulling forth these things like, planetary alignments and constellations and prophecies, it gives you a sense of destiny, of that we can do this. I think it just gives us a lot of hope, and it gives us a ground to move forward, because without hope, we have nothing. So I think it's really important what you're doing, bringing together the myth and the story and the sacred sites and all of these things with the, the ecology that we can observe and that we're part of. That's really powerful. Thank you.
Thank you. It's very exciting to work at that level, to work with regeneration at that level. And we've gone on to expand land accordingly, and to restore land that otherwise would have been taken over by large-scale monoculture, poisonous farming developments. So it does. I'm sharing this because I really would love to give, to encourage everyone to take heart, these signs from nature that we still welcome in her system if we go into, as you say, humility and service.
I love that. I always think, you know, in my dark hours, I think we're children of the universe, no less than the stars and the lions, right? It's just stepping into the story that we're already in.
Absolutely.
Linda,
Thank
but
you.
just as we bring this to a close, there's been a couple of questions about the white lions in relationship to the trophy hunting. And
Yes.
I think this would be a good thing to bring in, because I know you've been struggling to end trophy hunting of white lions for decades now. And I think you've been making some progress. Yes?
Yes, indeed. You know, it's I've been engaging in legislation and bringing in actually global environmental lawyers as well, who are doing magnificent work with changing constitutional legislation of governments. Now, it might seem too little too late. That's a term we must stop using because that's not how Gaia works. She is alive, she is restoring herself, and she's inviting us to come back into that restoration process. So during COVID, I presented in Parliament, and I think this will amuse everyone, in the midst of the General Assembly, where this whole issue was raised, because it's reached dire circumstances. It's not only the hunting of lions in the wild, it's commoditizing, industrializing lions in factory farms for the lion bone trade in the East. And I presented in Parliament, but before I did so, I actually pulled out a chair and I put the mantle of the white lion, the indigenous mantle of the medicine woman who'd rescued me all those years ago. I put that mantle on the chair and I said to the auditorium, "Who will speak for the lion?" And then I just marched off, and that chair sat there for 2 days as the proceedings with the lion bone traders and the trophy hunters and the other syndicates, and they all put their cases forward. That mantle of who will speak for the lion, because that is the indigenous way. Who will speak for nature? We need to listen. And ultimately, I have to say, we're speaking about fire and the use of fire. Well, it so happened that National Assembly, that auditorium later burnt down, and coincidence, no doubt. But what was positive was that there's been a whole legislative shift now, which includes Indigenous and includes Indigenous thinking, sentience, and the shutting down of this industry after 3 decades. So it was a massive breakthrough.
So the industry is now stopped.
Officially, government has promised they will shut down the industry, but you can imagine the court cases taking place with, and it's dire to go into the details, but there are probably an estimated 11 to 14,000 lions in cages in these factory farms awaiting their fate. Wow. As legislation grinds in a very slow process towards a conclusion. And that, when that happens, which will probably be large-scale euthanasia, we'll need to do a global prayer to account for, if you believe in spirit, which I do, these ancestors ascending at the same time, and what that means for humanity to have reached this point of, as the perpetrator of such injustice on our planet. But I tend to focus on the positive, and that's why I think I'd like to end on a positive note, but I think it's worth your raising that point. Jim, we need to know the worst, so we're not unrealistic. I've seen some of the worst that humanity is capable of, but I focus on the solution And the end point is harmonious coexistence with our planet, and the invitation that we all can find our way there if we make this quantum shift, because it is a system change. There's no way that we can continue with the old system of exploitation. That is over for us. But
Yes.
there are many, many examples of successful, regenerative, alternative initiatives that are really gaining traction. And that's where we focus our energy.
And then finally, Linda, and I would like you to also give us a white lion blessing as we close out today. But before that, what message, if there was a single message that you would give to the governments and the climate activists that are now gathered in Sharm el-Sheikh at this crucial moment, knowing that the COP is in alignment with the white lions in a powerful, synchronistic way, and also Ukraine, what would be your message? What would be the priority that they need to work on? What would you say people should do in Sharm el-Sheikh? What's the outcome?
For all the decision makers and everyone there, I would say we need to look at our end point, and instead of seeing it as the model of sustainable use, we need to look at what will harmonious coexistence look like on our planet. And if that's what we wish to achieve, and we're being watched, we are being held accountable. If that's what we wish to achieve, what is our next step now? And they will know their next step, whether they choose to take it or not. But if that is our goal, rather than goals that are kind of apologetically clinging on to the old order, there is no old order that is going to carry us through the changes that are upon us. We have to make a radical leap and visualize what a harmonious planet looks like with all other inhabitants, including our own kind.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, Tamsin, for joining us. And now, Linda, why don't you close us out with a white lion blessing?
A white lion blessing, absolutely. So, by divine order, through the power of love, in the presence of nature's holy ones, whole, restored, complete, as we align our heart with the great heart, with the lion heart, with the true heart, with the golden heart, with the one heart of all creation, as we align through the central sun, through Sirius, through the aligned Mother Moon to source, to the galactic center, as we connect with Great Spirit, and we give thanks for the gift of fire that was given by Spirit with the responsibility of fire. How do we respond at this time? How do we gain full responsibility? How do we restore our conscience, our co-sentience with this planet, that we are one with all of creation? And we know that the lions who are born through the darkest hour, carrying the light from source, are our totem animals, are our guardians and guides, as is all of nature, all the way up and all the way down the food chain. We restore our totemic connection with the planet, that each and every one of these species has human guardians who love them with all their hearts. With the white lions as the climate indicator species, their message is twofold. They are nature's greatest blessing at this time and nature's final warning. Final warning because we are on the point of system collapse. Greatest blessing because they show the way to the solution. They are heart beings and united with one heart in humility. We have the tools that nature is asking of us to become lion-hearted, that quality of fearlessness inspired by love and respect for the natural world that enables us to transform our human world. It makes us unstoppable. I'm going to close with an ancient incantation. It is actually possibly the first word of the First Nations, and it means star and it means lion. And sounded together, it is star lion, and it is the root word of the Khoisan nations. It is also the root word of the traditions in the East as well. It is this word, Tsao or Tao, the Tao, when all is in balance along the central way, yin and yang in perfect balance. And so I'd love for us all to close with this incantation, because you are only meant to use this incantation in Indigenous belief if you are calling, you are summoning the star lions to be with us at this time. Well, indeed we are. So, tsatsao, 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 salem sanba, sancte aurea, sanctus spiritus, salem, peace on earth, tsatsao.
Oh, tsatsao.
Tsatsao.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Tamsin. Thank you,
everyone.
Abo and Aisha from Sierra Leone. We'll see everybody here again tomorrow for our third session on the COP. Bye for now. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Lions